Hello, hello, and happy Monday. How are you feeling in the workplace today? Are you feeling great? Are you motivated? Are you excited about what you're doing? Or are you dreaming of something else? So, whether you want to get remotivated or whether you'd like to leave and do something new, I have the perfect guest for you today. So, just stay tuned. Your relationship with money matters. I'm Michelle Perkins, and this is the Money and You podcast, where I will be breaking down your relationship with money, offering tough love money tips, and a money dating plan that will focus on lifting the barriers to success to help pave the way for better money practices and increased wealth. It's time to take control to live a limit-free life. It starts today. Hello. I'm going to introduce you to Mpume, the founder and CEO of Change Conversations, a corporate level coach with a deep understanding of the corporate and business environment. She's honed her skills to work with individuals at their different life stages for them to have work-life alignment. And we're going to talk about what that looks like and how you can achieve it, even if you feel like that's not even possible for you. We have some really interesting conversations we're going to have, and I'm going to bring in Mpume, whose last name I am going to let her pronounce for me, and she is zooming in with me here today from Johannesburg, South Africa, and so I'm super excited about that. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. I'm so glad that, we found each other. And the one of the beautiful things about the world today is people can reach across the globe and find other exciting leaders and coaches. And so can you give us a little background? What I told people was very brief. So let's hear a little story about your background and how you got to the point where you're doing this today.
Yeah. So my name is Mpume Ncube-Daka. Based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I am an executive and career coach, and I had been in corporate for nearly 30 years. Started off my career in finance, and I'm on my fourth career change. I moved from finance into marketing and moved from marketing into business strategy and product management. And now I am in the coaching space, which I never thought I would do. And this for me, it's an exciting space. I keep telling the story that when we were at university, and we were BCom or B science students, we used to laugh at people that did humanities. It was just like, what are they doing? And now when I'm finding myself in this humanities space, I'm enjoying it, I'm loving it. And it's something that never really featured in my life, but I've discovered I've got a huge passion to work with people. I've got a huge passion to see people really take their lives to the next level. And it's all about people finding fulfillment and success in their lives and in their careers. And this is what I'm doing now.
I love that. I love that you were thinking, why would anybody want the humanities? And now you're in it. And I had thought I should have gone into that right away, actually, and then I went into finance and accounting as well. And so it's funny what we assume about what we should be doing. So yeah, thank you. That's great, and glad that you are enjoying your transition yourself. And so you help people to make their transitions, right?
Yes, I do. In fact, it's becoming one of the biggest component of the works that I'm doing. And I'm finding people, so I've got a thing about that people they need to be in careers that they enjoy, and they need to be fulfilled. This thing of being stuck in the career that you hate, and on a Sunday evening, you've got Sunday blues and you really don't want to wake up and go to this place. The biggest thing for me is, what are you going to do about it? And you are the only person who can make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah, that is correct. And so I find it interesting because, you are in a different country, but it sounds like some of the feelings and the issues in the workplace are the same. And so, have you anything that you've noticed that is the same or different, from the way it is in one country to another?
So what I'm finding, the great resignation that has been labeled, I'm finding it's happening globally. So I keep saying I was the statistic. I contributed to the statistic of the great resignation. And for me, there was a reason. So last year I really went through I'll say it a tough patch, but it made me question where my life was at. So I lost a cousin of mine to cancer, and then my husband ended up in hospital and had to have a major operation. And then I lost a friend of mine to COVID. All these things literally happened over a space of like 8 weeks or 12 weeks.
Oh, goodness.
And as the year went by, I really asked myself, if I were to die tomorrow, will I be happy? And I've really enjoyed my life. I've been in careers that I've enjoyed. I've enjoyed the fact that I've embraced change. But there was a biggest hole that said, there's more that you need to do. And I then actually decided this was the time to take the plunge. I had known when I joined the last company that I was working for that I had no plan to actually move on to be employed moving forward. So this literally just made me question where I was at in terms of my own life. And the biggest answer was I really thought it was time for me to do what I wanted to do and really impact other people's lives. And I think I've got a wealth of experience from corporate, having worked myself up into an executive level. And I think I've got a lot to share, even from a space of transitioning. And I'm just finding that I seriously have a passion of just sharing my wisdom and getting out there.
Yeah, thank you. And is that what you're talking about when you talk about the work-life alignment, is aligning your own values and interests and everything else with what you do, or are you referring to something else?
It is that, and it's also about what people will call work-life balance. Because I don't believe in work-life balance. I don't think anybody ever gets to that point of work-life balance. So for me, it's about just aligning your priorities at that point in time. I don't think so. Balance for me brings a scale. It's like there's this 50-50 scale, and there's just no way that we always have balance. So my belief is that you decide what is a priority at that point, and work could be a priority at that point, and family at some point can be a priority. So you need to find a way to kind of align yourself as you're going along. And that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, thank you. I know I used to say the it wasn't really a balance, but you could focus on doing more of what you want to do and less of what you don't want to do. And that was the sort of guidance that I would use for myself. And because, you're right, you can't make that pie chart and get all the pie pieces to look the same.
No.
Yeah. So that's great though. And do you, when you made this decision, because I know, as you know, the people working around you, everyone's so engrossed in work. A lot of times if you were to ask people what they would like to do, they won't necessarily know. They won't have taken the time to think about it or figure it out, and because they're so busy living their lives and taking care of their families and working. And so how did you already have a feel? Did you have to do some work to get to the point where you knew to make this particular transition?
So I think I knew a couple of years back that if I were to leave corporate, this is what I wanted to do. The timing wasn't clear. So when life happened, the timing became very clear.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was easier from that perspective. But what I'm finding is, as you're saying, I'm finding a lot of people that are knowing that they're not in the right spaces, but there's a lot of fear that comes with it. And there's a lot of limiting beliefs as well, that really get a lot of people stuck.
Right. And to go back to your story, I'm sorry for your losses. That was a rather difficult and tragic way to catalyze this career change. I find that happens a lot where people, are faced with something really difficult, and that's when they make the change. We kind of hope that people would be able to do it without having something like that happen, to be conscious enough to be thinking about it and intentionally doing something with a career change, just on their own without a major life change. So that's where somebody like you comes in, who can help people who are just sort of thinking about it to actually, have it take form.
Yeah. And I'm finding myself really doing a lot of that. Because I could either just deal with people that are coming in and they want to progress in their careers, and maybe they're doing well, but they really want to have a career strategy that will take them to the next level. But of lately, I'm getting a lot of people that are saying, I'm definitely not in the right space. I know I need to do something else, but I have no clue what that looks like. I need somebody to actually guide me through that process. Mm-hmm. So then I'll do one-on-one coaching sessions with them. And I also have a group coaching offering that I'm doing mainly for people that want to career transition.
Great. Yeah, fabulous. So let me talk a little about the transition you made, because you went from corporate to entrepreneur, right? And that's a big transition. That has, how did you prepare for that? Or did you just figure it out along the way?
So I'm doing it for the second time.
Oh, okay.
Which it doesn't make it any easier though. But I think I think you just know what to expect. And now I'm a bit older, which is great. And for me, it's about, I think with the initial transition that I did, it was more or less in the same space that I was in. I was still in marketing then, so it was different from that perspective. Now I'm in a space that is kind of fairly new, and I keep telling people that I'm not a human resources person. Yeah. It's just that I've got experience within the workplace, and hence for me, and the fact that I've embraced change within my own career, that element comes in much easier. But what I'm finding is having to network and to really let people know what you're doing becomes the biggest thing. And how do you then position yourself in the marketplace also becomes the biggest thing. So I found myself having to do a lot of social media, having to be visible, which is something that I wasn't very comfortable with. Mm-hmm. I've always been very introverted, always wanted to be in my own space, and just having to do Insta lives and be out there has really taken a lot out of me. But now I'm here and I'm doing this.
I love it. And you said you were also a podcast host. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Tell us about your
Change
podcast.
Conversations with Mpume.
It was Change Conversations with Mpume? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That's great. And when you talk about change conversations, is that the conversation you have with people about their ideas for change, how to change? What are you talking about on the podcast?
So it's different topics, mainly focusing on the workplace. But for me, as I was saying to you earlier, is that I just love having conversations. And if that conversation can change anybody, that for me is the biggest thing. So if it can impact one person, that for me, it's the biggest thing. But what I found myself focusing on is a lot of conversations around career transitioning. I found myself talking a lot around leadership, as well as how to create generational wealth. And that was just my own personal conversation, because I was thinking we do not have a lot of conversations around money. We always shy away from money because of where we come from. We were never taught to really have conversations around money. And for me, it was my own personal journey to say, so how can I really put in the effort to create generational wealth and have my kids and more generations to come have a better story with money than what I had.
Well, you just brought up my favorite topic. So that's great. I love that. And you're right. At least here, we don't have a lot of conversations about money. Apparently there you don't either. So yeah, so important. And we could talk about this all day, but you have to have a certain mindset around money to be able to go from a corporate job to entrepreneurship. Obviously, it's not a stable paycheck, and there's a lot that goes with that. So did you have any trouble with it? At least maybe the first time, not the second time, or ever?
So my story around money, it's layered.
I love money
layers
stories. Thank
and
you.
layers. So it starts back, I think, from growing up and not having big conversations around money in the home. And when you ask for something, you get told, oh yeah, at the end of the month, you might get it. And then you go into university. So I went into university and I got a scholarship from Unilever, which is one of the biggest companies globally. And then you finish university, you start working. And the minute you start working, you've got all these banks that are offering you credit. And it becomes like, so they've got these graduate packages that they give you where you get a credit card and you just have this access to debt and you think you've made it in life. And I fell into that trap. So my story really revolves around just finding myself in this debt where I will pay it off and go back and pay it off and go back. And at some point I had to take a step back and go, what is this about? Because I know it's not about money. And I've really had to do a lot of healing, and I've engaged a number of coaches in terms of my money mindset and my relationship with money.
Wow.
Because then I actually realized that there were deeper issues than just money. And I've had to deal with that. And some of that speaks to the fear of running out of money, which really becomes a whole thing, and the anxiety as well that comes with either having the money or not having the money. So I've had to deal with some of those things. So I'm saying to you, it's been a whole lot of work, but we're in a good space now.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And I love that because I think a lot of people see people who've had a corporate career, gone to an executive level, clearly have made, good money, as not having those kinds of money mindset issues. So that I love that you brought that up because it's a separate thing. It's like having relationship issues. It's a different. It is a relationship, so it is very much like that. But I love that you even got extra help with that because I think sometimes people think they shouldn't need that. They're too well educated or whatever to need actual help with something like that. So yeah, that's very inspiring to me that you brought that up. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. It's never about the money. There's more to it.
That was brilliant when you said that because we think it's about the money, but it's not about the money. I mean, we think if I just had more money or if I just had more discipline around money or something, but I love that concept that it's not about the money. It's about us and our upbringing and all of the other stuff. So how did you have to release some beliefs? How did you shift some of this?
Yeah, so there's a lot of release of beliefs that had to happen, and a lot of also meditations and realizing that I was holding a lot within myself. And mainly around the anxiety, because what was happening and how it was showing up, mainly in business, is that I was battling to even price my products or what I was offering, because then I would be thinking to myself, how are people going to afford this?
Yeah.
For sure, they don't have money. How can I be charging this rate? And you start asking yourself all these questions and you're projecting your own issues into your clients, which is something that I really needed to deal with for me to be able to put value in what I do and be comfortable to actually say the price and not feel guilty about it.
Yeah, exactly, which is tough for a lot of, especially women entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs in general, especially if you're in a field where you're trying to help people, because you want to help them.
Yeah.
You don't want to feel like it's, out of reach for some people because of what you charge. So, yeah, very, very interesting. Thank you. And it goes as well if people are staying in the corporate world and have to, negotiate a new salary or a promotion or whatever. It comes up everywhere. So.
Yeah. And I've seen that. In fact, I've seen it with most females.
Yeah.
We would battle to negotiate the salary when you are walking in. You will get offered a number and you think, oh, that's a good number, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know whether men get taught differently as they're getting older. They just seem to be able to negotiate. And for us, it's been mainly as Black females, we really battle with that negotiation. And you need to really be intentional about it, and be able to capture the value that you're bringing and put a price into it. But that's something that you have to teach yourself. It's not something that you just pick up.
Right. And a lot of people think it's and I think sometimes it is, but across the board, I don't think it's always a worthiness issue, like feeling worthy. I think it's oftentimes a caring issue, like you were speaking of, where you don't want to put too much burden on the person that you're trying to help, or even the company you work for. You don't want to ask for too much because you're looking at how that's going to affect the whoever is paying you, a client or a company. And so, yeah, it can be a lot of different things, but super interesting. And it contributes to your decision making. So it defines your decisions, actually. So if you aren't working, like I say all the time, on your money relationship, then you might miss out on opportunities. You might, just not find that fulfillment that you were talking about, because you have to make those decisions.
Yeah, that's very true. Because the way then you make your decisions, sometimes you just make the decision, you think it's just about my fulfillment. But what I'm finding is that money actually plays a role, a bigger role in that fulfillment.
Yeah, because how much can you, if you're struggling and you have no cash flow, or no profitability, there just isn't enough left at the end of the day to expand what you're doing and reach more people and do more of the things that will fulfill you and will also help other people. So there's no real benefit there. So how about, I love that you had a marketing background too, because going into entrepreneurship, what the surprise was for me was how much I would be marketing. I thought I'd be coaching, but I was doing a lot of marketing, and that part's hard. So you have an advantage there. So I think, and do you coach people who are going into entrepreneurship?
Yes, I do, because what I find is that people that are transitioning, they're either transitioning in the workplace, or some of them want to transition out of the workplace into entrepreneurship. So I'm finding myself doing a lot of that. And I'm also a supervisor in one of the business schools within their MBA entrepreneurial stream. And that for me is also, and I've been doing that for the past 4 years. And that has also really helped from helping people to really think through what their businesses would look like. And a conversation of a very clear strategy on what it is that you're bringing to the market and who needs it and who's the target market and who's paying. And also pushing people to the story of saying, you need to have a better relationship with money if you want to attract money. Because now I know those stories. So it's really helped.
That's fantastic that you can actually help. I think about that a lot, the kids coming out of MBA school, and how if they had some of this knowledge as they come out, it'll really help them. And I know it's not normally taught there, so that's great that you're introducing them to that concept. So, yeah, I bet they are interested too, because it's an interesting topic that you don't hear much about.
They are, and the professor who runs it actually pushes them to come up with innovative things. So it's all about, you can't just be doing another consulting business. How is it different to whatever is out there? So some of the things that they're really coming up with for me is when I see it coming to pass, it's like, oh my God, this is so interesting. So, and just engaging with the ideas and breaking them down and challenging them to say, so how is this sustainable? Because the sustainability of any business, that's a critical thing. And I even say to myself, I don't want a business that is reliant on me.
Yeah.
I want a business that is going to survive even when I'm not working on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And that pushes you to the next level to say, so what does that look like? And what are the processes that you need to put in place? And what type of products you need to put in place to be able to achieve that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, so let's walk through a few steps to a career change. That would be great if you want to just give us a little insight there. And then also, if you don't want a career change, if you actually want to, find a way to be more motivated in what you're doing right now, I'd love to address that too. So.
Okay. So I think if we look from a career change, I always say to people, you need to start by believing that it's possible, right? Because sometimes we want to do it, but we immediately don't believe that it's possible. You either think, I am too old, I am too young, I am too this, the economy is in the recession, there's no way I can be able to do a career change. And my line is, a lot of people do career changes on a daily basis. So it's possible, but you need to believe that as one of the initial stages. And you also then need to be saying to yourself, the new thing that I want to move into, how does it align to who I am as a person? And how does it align to my own personal values? Because that becomes critical. Because if your personal values are misaligned with the career that you're going to have a misalignment. And then that's when the being unfulfilled comes through. So you need to take the time to actually look at your personal values. And sometimes I find that people battle to articulate what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't really articulate that, then it becomes tricky. Because you also want to get into an organization that aligns with your values. So that as well becomes another thing. And if you're going into entrepreneurship, then what type of business do you really want to get into that really talks to your values? And another element to look at is, what are your passions and your interests? What are the things that are really exciting for you? Because sometimes I find people that are saying, I know I want to do a career change, but I have no clue what is the next thing that I want to move into. So my question becomes, what are the things that you're passionate about? And do you believe that you can make money out of that? Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, it is about making the money. Mm-hmm. Or do you also, so the other side of that conversation can also be, what are your strengths and skills that you believe you can use then to be able to make money? So other people believe that I'm passionate about something, but I really don't see myself making money out of that. So there's a mindset shift that needs to happen. But you find that they've got skills and strengths that they can use immediately to be able to make money. So maybe that becomes the default, that how do you then use your existing skills to do something that you believe you're good at? You might not be as passionate about it, but you're good at it, and then you can make money. So those are the other elements to take into account.
Yeah, and do you think
that's very high level?
It is, but it's really important because you have to start there. You really can't, people try to start in more detailed areas, or they're already looking at industries, but I think you have to start at that higher level and look at things that you might not normally look at, including your own values and strengths and interests. But you bring up a great point, which is sometimes we have a passion for something. I worked with somebody who's had a major transition, and, had always loved wine. So decided, I'm going to take all these wine courses, work toward being a sommelier. He actually started doing some wine sales and things to kind of get into that industry a little, and found in the end that he'd rather, wine was a better hobby than it was a career. And so it's not always that thing we're most passionate about has to be our career. And now he's doing something that he has skills, he has strengths, and he has interest in. Maybe it's not his greatest passion, but he's happy and he can still do his wine things on the weekend. So, I love people who are just ecstatic about their work and would do it whether they were being paid or not. But that's not the reality for everyone all the time. So I appreciate what you just said, because money is a factor.
It is, and we can't run away from that fact.
Yeah. And people are very different. I mean, I think that's where you have to be at that high level and just understand yourself. And, if you know what your interests are, how deep that runs and how important it is for that to be a career versus, maybe something else that you're doing.
Yeah. I think taking the time, just the self-awareness becomes very critical when you have to do a career change.
Absolutely.
And knowing what makes you tick, what motivates you, and all these things, because those are the things that you really need to take into account. And sometimes just people not being able to articulate that becomes very tricky. So how do you get to a point where you really know who you are as an individual? And I always say to people, I'm no industrial psychologist or psychometrics, but sometimes it helps to use some of those assessment tools just to get to know yourself a little bit better. You might not resonate with everything that some of those reports tell you, like an Enneagram or something, but it will give you a perspective that you might really start engaging with. And that for me usually works. And having good conversations with your friends and asking people, why are they friends up with you? What is it about you that they like? You get to know yourself a little bit better for you to be able to then really explore and expand what is possible.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And I think that was my biggest surprise going into this career coaching was that was the most important thing. And even as a business owner, that's the most important thing, the self-awareness, because as a business owner, you come face to face with yourself all the time, what you do well and don't do well, or what you avoid or don't avoid. And I mean, you really have to know yourself. And that self-awareness piece, I think we're sort of trained when we go through school to look outside, look at the companies, look at the industry, look at the marketplace, and we don't spend a lot of time looking at ourselves. We might sort of think about what our interests are or our skills, but we don't go very deep with that. And that's really, when you want to make a career change, I think that's the most important thing. So, yeah, that's great.
It is very important. It is. It will either break you or make you, to be honest. And because you don't want to be a space where you're fooling yourself about a whole lot of things. Yeah. Like, for example, I know I'm not the greatest person when it comes to any legal anything. Like, my brain goes into a freeze. And so I'd rather go out and make sure that I get somebody who can do that bit for me, But if I was that kind of person who just wanted to do everything themselves, then you find yourself in a very difficult space.
Right. Absolutely. So as far as motivating yourself at work, maybe you either don't feel you can make a change or don't really want to make a change, but you aren't very motivated. You aren't feeling fulfilled. What is your advice to people?
That becomes a difficult one because you're the one who needs to really motivate yourself. Yeah. But what I find is really a mindset change is needed mainly with motivation. So you need to say, how can I look at this differently? And have conversations because we are, as human beings, who are big about complaining about everything and everybody and everything else around us. And sometimes a question that says, how am I contributing to the situation, becomes one of the biggest conversations you can have with yourself. But the most honest answer is what you need to get when you're doing that reflection. Because then you need to be saying to yourself, what is it that is not motivating me at this point in time? Because then you need to confront that element. Because it's easier for us to blame our boss, the organization, our colleagues, and everything else. But what is it that we are not getting that we really are looking for? And then if we can answer that question, then we are able to then find it within ourselves, because we have all the answers within ourselves. So it becomes one of the biggest things where now maybe working with a coach will be one thing that will help you, because a coach will challenge you into a different perspective, and they will even challenge your thoughts and whether whatever that you're telling yourself is really true. Because as individuals, we tell ourselves a lot of stories, and 80-90% of the time they are not very true, but we keep all this going on in our own heads. So having somebody who can challenge your thinking, for me, becomes one of the biggest things.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. And so you can't, I love the question, just how am I contributing to whatever is going on? I think it's a great question in business too. If you're not making the revenue that you want to be making, if you're not having the, the growth that you want, because most likely you are contributing to that. Not you, but us as business owners. Yeah. So, yeah, super
and
interesting.
Asking for help, Michelle, as well. We always think that asking for help makes you weak or makes you come across as weak. And for me, asking for help is you really getting out of your comfort zone, and that's where the growth lies. And really asking for help when you're battling with anything is something that I always recommend to anybody. And just having one or two people that are your either accountability partners, and when you're battling with something, you ask. It's not a matter that you're stupid or anything, but you just ask so that you can move forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you brought up the word accountability, which it is hard to make a change. I want to talk to you about change because I know you have some thoughts on embracing change in your life. But change is hard, and having somebody hold you accountable, even though you want it, that doesn't mean you're going to take the steps necessarily to do what needs to be done. And so to continue to connect with that desire for the change and then also help you take the steps, that can be really tough. So help you're right. You need help. People trying to do everything on their own, that's really kind of a mistake, in my opinion. But yeah. So how do people embrace change? Because I had somebody on the show recently, Phil Johnson, who was talking about talking about it in rather a scary way, actually, but the rate of change today is just so fast and so enormous that, our old mammal brains really aren't even equipped to handle the kind of change that we're seeing in the world today. And, but I love that, there are people out there like you who embrace change and help people to enjoy change. How do you think about it? And how do you help other people to think about it?
So for me, the biggest thing is knowing your why, if that makes sense. Knowing why is it that you actually want to do the change. So when you are going through it, you keep remembering the why. So even when it's tough, and even when you are in a storm of being fearful, you keep remembering why you're doing what you're doing. I think that's at the core of what change is about. And for me, change is also about seeing possibility and seeing opportunity. And you might not know what the end goal looks like, but you know that there's a possibility of this thing working out. And it's also about risk appetite. How much risk what is your risk appetite? And if you you know where that is, let's say in a scale of 100, then you know that if it's at an 80, then you're a kind of person who will be easier to embrace change. But if your risk appetite is very low, then you will find it difficult to really embrace change. And another thing is about putting a plan in place. Sometimes you don't want to go at it blindfolded as if you're just really taking a chance. It's about what plan can you put in place so that even if you do not know the detail, but at least you've got a plan that you've got in place. I was interviewing one guy who moved from being a teacher to being a social entrepreneur. And he was saying to me, mainly within career transition, you don't have to think about it as a satellite navigation. You don't have to know every band that or every curve that you're going to go into, but you know that there's a curve that is coming up. Mm-hmm. And it's about how you then take that smoothly in a way that is comfortable for you. And in that case, then you kind of open yourself up in saying, I know the road is not straight. There will be curves, but what plan do I take to be able to maneuver that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Plans are very important, and the desire is important, and the why is important, and then you do need the plan, because otherwise it's a bit abstract. And when you have a plan, you can actually take action. And once you start taking action, I think that's where some of the comfort comes, because you see, okay, I took that step, and I'm still here, and I'm okay, and so it's easier to take the next one. But yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I love your energy around this and your experience with it. And are there particular types of people that you are working with mostly, or?
So I'm finding myself working a lot with middle managers as well as executives. But I'm not particularly, so what I usually say is I really enjoy working with graduates, people who are really getting into the corporate space. And I always say, you need to be streetwise in corporate. Yeah. And I can bring that level of really guiding you through that journey, because that journey can be very tough for different people. And what I'm finding as well is that the middle management, people are finding themselves having been a specialist one day, and the next minute they're being promoted to being a manager. And somebody is like, oh my God, what's happening? So how do I need to manage people? So I love working as well at that band. And then I'm getting also a lot of executives that are coming through that I'm also working with.
I love that. That's you're absolutely right. That corporate, I wish somebody was around to have helped me when I got into the corporate environment, because it was completely new and different, and there was no roadmap. I was just feeling my way to, whatever, but I could have really used some good mentorship around that. So that's a great thing to be helping people with as well. So, well, how do people find you? And people around the world can engage your services with the magic of Zoom, I would imagine.
Yes, hence I'm here. I think really having to work with people globally is what is exciting for me. So people can find me on LinkedIn under Mpume Ncube-Daka. Or they can find me on Facebook and Instagram, and also on YouTube under Change Conversations with Mpume.
Change Conversations with Mpume. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's great. Well, you're a delight and a wealth of knowledge, and I kind of have, I tune into people who believe in a limit-free life, which is my company. And I believe that you are that person who believes in that as well. And I think everyone everyone deserves that, and everyone should be, on the lookout for how to live a more limit-free life, whether that's through their improving their relationship with money or building, a great career, or preferably both. So thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the conversation. And so I would encourage the audience to look you up and watch your YouTube videos and listen to your podcast. So
thank you. Thank you for the time. I really appreciate it.
I do too. And thank you for joining us so late at night in Johannesburg. Really, I love.
Yeah, now I'm going to sleep.
Yeah, good. I love hearing your stories though from where you live and realizing how, it's the same. I mean, the workplace, how you navigate it, all of that, it's the same things. So I think that's great. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you again. And we'll be following you. And thank you, audience, for being here. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we love having you here. So please, if you liked the show, follow us, give us a like, give us a review, send me questions. You can reach me at michelle@limitfreelife.com, 2 L's. And you can access the free resources on the Limit Free Life website as well that help with career change, money mindset, and also some resources for entrepreneurs. So check us out there and have a great week.